Yeah, thank you very much. And in line with the last speaker in Dutch, I would say goedemorgen. Sorry, I can't address that in other languages than that. Besides good morning, very happy with my another presentation about data and our data hub. It's not about a copy paste. I think we are working on this for many years, but maybe you see some similarities with the data challenges you have, and that it can lead to a start. Um, I think this is part of my South African experience, so I'm glad that this happens also to me. Now, you already know where I'm from, and I help the consortium in many projects and advice, and data is becoming more and more a part of it. So you need good data. And why do you need good data? For example, to see trends, to forecast. You negotiate with a publisher, and it's about more and more costs are based on APCs, on publications. What will we publish in the next 3 years? But forecasting is also about cap management. There's a cap. When do you think that cap is reached? Should you start communicating? It's about correctness of data. A publisher shows you a report with all the publications that are published open access. But are those really the articles really open access? When you talk with a publisher, they can have estimates that forecasted are too low or too high. So at the end, it's all about bringing your own data to the table. You can't trust a publisher, the data of a publisher. So that's, by the way, there's two different things: trust the publisher and trust the data. Even if the publisher thinks the publisher has This is way too specific to go into detail, and if you love this kind of pictures, please discuss this with me afterwards. But what we do is we harvest a lot of DOIs from several resources. So from the 22 publisher reports, from Scopus, from our quiz systems. We now also have OA switchboard data. So we have a lot of DOIs. And we then look at the publishers, the organizations, the type of articles, if it's open access or not, and a lot of other variations. And then we look at other sources that can tell us even more, Unpaywall, at the DOI, so the organizations. And then you see that in some of those resources, funder information is available, and in others not. If we only have, let's say, our quiz systems that don't have funder information, then we would never know from our DOIs what the impact is of funders for our output. If we only use Scopus, then we not see the impact of more the social sciences and humanity publications that are not that well represented. If we use all, then we have a better insight. And there is further information in Crossref. So the DOIs, we look at Crossref, and then we have another example is the quality of the data. If you use, for example, Unpaywall to check the open access status, Unpaywall is not always correct. There are some publishers who are very poorly represented, for example, Wiley. So that means if Unpaywall says this article from Wiley is closed access, in practice it could be open access. But you have more resources to check open access, and based on that we have a business rule. If source A says open and source B says closed, we know that source A is better than source B. This article must be open. Or for example, green open access, and Paywall prefers bronze open access, so that means open on the side of the publisher, prefers that in the status above green. But we prefer the reporting on green, so we know if that article is open in our quiz systems, then we show it's green open access and we don't show it's bronze open access. Compliance is very much important, so we demand from the publishers that it's open access and it's funder compliant, but some publishers don't provide all of the funder related information, so we can't base on the report of the compliance service. And also there we can combine not only the publisher report and look at it, but we can also look at what we find in other resources, including in Paywall, Crossref, etc., etc. So it's a much richer experience. And last but not least, this is a very interesting one. This is more indicative metadata. Our institutions want to know what do we publish outside of the deal and how much do we pay outside of the deal, so APCs in the wild. What we there try to do is to make an estimate. Many publishers have lists with APCs, and we add that to our journal lists. Then we ask for publishers, if you do a report from our consortium deal, add the APC with the publication, but that is a list price APC. And we also use the open APC database. That is a database everybody can use, and especially France and German universities are adding information about what they actually pay for publication. And based on that, we know an average APC of a journal, and every DOI has a journal, and then we say, okay, this is the average price of that APC for that journal. We don't say it's actually paid, but it gives a university a rough estimation of what probably will have been paid outside of the deals. And based on that, universities know that about 25% of all open access costs are outside of the contracts of the library, and that it is growing rapidly because the MDPIs and frontiers are moving up quickly. It's an line that goes up, and up doesn't mean good, like we heard in the previous presentation, not always good. So this is a general dashboard, and we can use that to have all kinds of filters. This dashboard says that there are more than 300,000 DOIs in our data hub. It's from 2018 until now. It says something about what overall we have on open access, and divided to green and gold. We can see that we have more than 700 publishers are recognized. So we see the amount of institutions we cover, we see the amount of journals that are in the deal, and then we can play with the filters. So if an institution says, give me your report about everything we published in 2022 with a certain publisher outside of the deal, we can check this. Or if the consortium says, gives us the top 20 journals that we publish a lot in, but that are not covered by a consortium deal, we can report on that to the consortium, and that helps us with our strategy in the portfolio. I have to flip to my screen. Another important one, I already mentioned that, is compliance. So here we have information about the article, we have information about the CC BY license, and we have information about the funder. That means we now know, okay, we have NWO as a major funder, and the NWO requires open access with the CC BY license, not with the CC BY NC or CC BY NC ND license. And they do analysis, and more they send researchers a warning, you are not compliant. Now, with this kind of desktop, we can generate a report, show us all 2022 publications with the funder acknowledgement NWO, and that have a CC BY NC or CC BY NCND license. The consortium presents that to the libraries, and then I say, it's up to you what to do with it. It's not the rule. That's not a rule from the consortium that you have to tap the researcher on the shoulder and says you are not compliant, but we know that risk management is more and more a topic for senior management, and you can help senior management with risk management based on the reports we have. This is an example of a CAP dashboard. So we have 9 CAP deals, and every month we get reports, and we track what is the CAP, what is the status of the CAP, and how does it compare to the average of that publisher. This is, I believe, Taylor and Francis in 2021, and here you see it's a very, it's a score that is very balanced, and at the end we have 20 APCs left, and that's going to the next year. But we also see with Oxford University Press, for example, they have repair actions, so their open access workflow is not that good, but they repair, and then they ask to me in August, shall we do a repair action? And we look at the data. Yeah, there's plenty of room in the CAP, so let's do it. And if they maybe ask in November again, shall we do a repair action? I could also say no, based on the trend. I think that we should stick to the current DOIs we have in the current workflow, because I want to have also some APCs left at the end of the year. And with a Lippincott, we one of the first consortia that have a deal with them. They had a very poor workflow. We really have to escalate and say, based on our data, this is not working. You are underperforming, and we need to address this. And a lot of budget was taken over to the next year because of the data we could show and prove that their open access service was poor. This is a heat map, and it shows more in an intuitive way what is going on. This is a heat map about Mr. Open Access. So first of all, how do you discover Mr. Open Access? You try to track all the publications from corresponding authors from your institute or your consortium. Then you look at the journals therein. You match the journals with the list from the consortium of what are eligible journals. You know the institutes, so you also know, is the institute eligible? And then you know this should be an eligible article for our deal. And then you compare it with the the report from the publisher about what have we published under the deal. If the DOI is on that list, then it's okay. But if the DOI is not on the list, then it is missed open access. And of course, there are also already all sorts of challenges because there can be multiple corresponding authors, or a corresponding author can have multiple affiliations. But it's a starting point to look at what is going wrong. And is there a publisher, so from left to right, that maybe has more dark areas and maybe is underperforming? Or is there more an issue with a specific institution? And why is that specific institution underscoring? And by what we saw that medical hospitals were not that good aligned in Ringgold and were not that well aligned with the consortium. They also use some different language in communication. So maybe it's good to pay more attention on the medical universities to look at the workflow and the communication. And we discovered that based on this kind of graphics, you can't look at an XML, an Excel file and say, this university underperforms, or this publisher underperforms. You need to kind of have a data view like this. To let you know, we then run a report, for example, with Elsevier about potential missed open access. The university libraries get that overview. This is potentially missed. They get also a workflow, how to check that online, where to look at, and that generates a missed open access file, and I present it to Elsevier, and Elsevier updates it and presents us the repair links. Another one, what do we publish outside of the deal? Which full OI journals are published outside of the deal? And this is developing so rapidly, you can't say, okay, in 2020, we did one time analysis, we know which publisher and which journal is top. This develops continually, so you have to monitor this closely. And then we can say, okay, we are missing something in our strategy. More and more researchers are publishing outside of our deals. They're publishing with the MDPIs, with the frontiers, with PLOS. What to do about it? Why shouldn't we have full OA agreements? Otherwise, we are losing the researcher and our portfolio is shrinking. And the researcher is paying, the researcher has maybe to negotiate about the quality of the process, and we even see they maybe publish in journals that the institution is not that happy about. Finalizing my presentation, transferring journals is very interesting. Wiley, for example, 2022, you maybe also got a mail. We are transferring journals to Hindawi, we are flipping journals. Cambridge is heavily developing their journal portfolio. What is the impact on your contract? How much do you publish with those journals? We try to track that. We know in which journals we publish. We know which journals were in the deal in 2021 and went out of the deal in 22. And then you can have an alert if you negotiate with Wiley again about the portfolio dynamics and the impact on the value of the contract. And this is a dashboard that alerts us for DOIs that enters the system twice. And besides, Terry Francis, for example, changed their workflow in 2021. They went to a new workflow environment. Then the risk of doubling the DOIs is very high. But we even accounted the DOI from a journal that was published by, let's say, one publisher, Sage. The journal transferred to another publisher, let's say Elsevier. Both publishers are not the correct name, but it's an example. And suddenly it pops up in the Elsevier workflow as we have published a new article under the deal. So very strange, but the complexity of the infrastructure at the library is, by the the publishers is that complex that they are not foolproof. A lot of information. If you're into this kind of stuff, if you want to see the data hub in work, in progress, let me know and I can tell you more. Thank you.
Arjan, thank you so much. I believe in listening to what the universe says, and I think looking at electricity, most of us are still in the dark when it comes to statistics, value assessment, etc. But we are learning this. I see this illuminated area this side. So these people have been informed. Yes. Can I also call, please, the other speakers to the front as well? And I do apologize to I would assume the people online constantly lost access to this stream. We apologize. There's electrical problems in the building. It is being sorted. So I do apologize for this. I should apologize on behalf of Sandy, but on behalf of the Radisson Hotel, rather. Thank you. All right, question time. Well, first of all, I have to say I learned a lot this morning. I think this is another session like this morning where I think we have to extend this and say, look, we're going to have a 2-3 day workshop to really look at metrics and how we assess our value. And I share some of the concerns. I know staff at Rhodes, often if we ask statistics, they say, well, please do not, because you are trying to assess how much we are doing. You know, we're not interested in your output in that way. We're interested in the value that is contributed towards the learning, teaching, and academic project. Thank you for very informative sessions. And I can't see well. Are there any questions from the audience? I don't see anything online. I'd assume they off at this stage. Any? Question.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Dr. Malfi John Bini Palari. I would like to acknowledge the presentation that we done this morning and those that were done yesterday. And of course, there are a number of key themes that have been emerging over the last 2 days of this conference. Perhaps maybe before I can put the questions, maybe let me contextualize the issues here. South African higher education is faced with a number of challenges. One, we all know that fees must fall movement brought about massification of higher education in the country. Two, the demand for higher education far outstripped the existing capacities. And of course, overcrowding our libraries in the classrooms have become a common norm across the system. Three, we know that around 70 to 80 of our students across the systems are NEFSAS funded. And the affordability of textbooks has become such a serious issue, a thorny issue for that matter. Four, the competition for relevance and ranking, as Mr. Makotongo has mentioned, is also another issue that is facing the system. And of course, the system is a public funded but underfunded. Now, coming to my question here is what kind of strategies can we put in place to support our program qualification mix, as well as the research niche areas within our systems and across the system. The system I'm referring to the whole system of, national system of innovation within the country. How can we support our program qualification mix, our research niche areas in a manner that is open, that is inclusive, that is developmental, and that's sustainable? And in terms of the policy articulation, poster, what kind of policies can we take advance to address these pressures? Thank you, colleagues.
Can I ask which of the speakers would endeavor to answer the questions?
Okay. From my side, I'm going to try to answer a question, Benny. It's very true. The demand for higher education has never been this high. And with the limited number of universities we have across the country, we can't absorb everybody. And the cost of textbooks, yes. I think in my presentation is what I've been trying to answer to say, I think we need to always focus on basics and focus on what is required. And the issue of textbooks, I think it's one of the questions you also touched on in our Chelsea meeting, that open education resources, open access is the way to go to make sure that the user doesn't have to pay a lot, but at least we look at the producer side in terms of the production of the resources, and the users can just consume on those resources. So openness, open education resource, open science, open data, open. Then it's free, but it's not free. Somebody still has to pay, but it's better if the user as a consumer, because at the end of the day, I mentioned that we produce students for economic development, for our national development plan. So the state and the society needs to pay in order for our future of our children. By the way, the graduates also form part of the criteria. For the country's loan, if I loan you money as a country, who's going to pay back the money? It is the graduates of the future. So it's sort of investments into the whole value chain. I hope I did answer. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to answer the question in 3 different ways. So the first one is if we look at our undergraduate students, so if we look at the question, around value add, what are we doing? I think that if we look at the undergraduate students, the work of the librarians is probably the most crucial thing that students learn in their whole time at the university. We live in a world in which things are changing at such a rapid pace, as we learned yesterday. And the most important skill anybody is going to learn at a university is how to find information, how to critique that information, i.e., is this valuable or is this fake news, etc., and then what to do with it. And that is what we teach in libraries. And it's probably the most important thing anybody is going to learn at a university, because they're going to go into a world in which things change so rapidly that they will constantly have to be learning, finding new information, seeing whether it's relevant, and doing something with it. So that's the first thing, or first way that I would answer. Then you talked about postgraduates and postgraduate students. And here I think the libraries linking with the particular strategies of their universities, again, play an incredibly important role. Helping students write those literature reviews. In the case of our particular university, where we are bringing in more postgraduate students, that's particularly important. And then the bigger picture of the research that is done in our country, helping people to publish, big part of what we do in the libraries, and then helping other people to find the information that has been published. And I think it's very important that we really encourage our researchers to be reading the research from the Global South, especially when they are dealing with issues in the Global South. And then finally, so now this is going one more step than I thought I was going to say, to be talking about the SDGs and how our research links to that. What we find is that many academics still struggle to see how their work links to one of the different SDGs. And actually, most people are doing research that links to one of the SDGs. So as librarians, I think there are so many different ways in which we speak into these different conversations.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Sorry, there was one online and one at the back. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to limit to these the last question, and it allows opportunity for the organizers to just check the venue, electricity, etc. But also you can meet up with the speakers during tea break afterwards. And also, Glenn needs an opportunity to speak to you as well before we disperse. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Claudius Matrogo from the CSIR. My question is targeted at the last speaker, Arjan. I just wanted to find out which tool or tools are you using to generate the insights that you have, just projected on the screen. I would like to know whether such a tool is an open access tool or a proprietary tool. Thank you.
Yeah. Good question. I get it more. We use a commercial tool. It's called Click. It's a data warehouse, but it also be able to present information, so it processes and also presents. You have other BI tools. Ideally, what we have built is open, but it's a business-related tool. In the Netherlands, we are working towards an open data hub where we can share both the data and the software, but for now it's closed. So what I can share is more insights and lessons learned, and less, okay, this is the tool, this is how you do it, or copy paste. I think it starts with the question, what do we need? Which use cases do we have? And based on that, look at the tools available. And that can be also starting relatively small. It helps us with a large ambition, but maybe it's also good to start small. So, but I can tell you more afterwards or can help you further. If you Google US, the SDG dashboard Netherlands, you see some examples of what universities in the Netherlands do with dashboarding. They're mapping the way so they connect automatically publications to the different SDG goals. So, and also there, I know some people who do that, so feel free to ask and I can connect you to them.
Thank you, Arjan. There's one last question I would like answered, and I love this question. I would like to extend this question, actually. It comes from Shana Schreier. A question for Prof. Maria. Would you recommend that data analytics, and I would like to add data visualization, be part of the curriculum for library and information specialists? If you can please respond.
So the simple response is yes, yes, yes.